Tonight, another wild storm system is set to slam several states. Millions are experiencing whiteout conditions, strong winds, and wildfires. The system is moving into the northeast. Our Lee Goldberg is tracking the timing. Legal fallout over suspected Venezuelan gang members and terrorists deported to a max security prison in El Salvador. The president calls for the possible impeachment of a federal judge. Some say Trump's administration outright ignored his orders. Family members claim innocent people are being swept up in the mass deportation operation.
It's an entire fabrication that their parents were going to kill them that night, as we showed by their premeditated, willful, and deliberate actions both before and after the killings.
One-on-one with the Los Angeles district attorney about why he's refusing to support resentencing for Lyle and Eric Menendez. JFK assassination files released, including more than 80,000 documents. But do they reveal anything that America didn't already know? The back and forth after the Department of Defense removes an article about baseball great Jackie Robinson from its website and then restores it.
To be a female rodeo athlete, you really have to be resilient.
It's a sport that requires as much heart as it does skill. And women are helping to transform the game while caring for their animals. This Women's History Month, ABC News Live takes you to the rodeo to watch some of the country's most talented women compete.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Linsey Davis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Linsey Davis. Thank you so much for streaming with us. We have a lot to get to as officials across this country are trying to put out both figurative and literal fires, including the firestorm ignited after the Defense Department pulled a website dedicated to baseball and civil rights icon Jackie Robinson. But on this final full day of winter, we begin with actual wildfires and the clash of seasons playing out in the form of a dangerous cross-country storm. In New Mexico, high winds kicked up a dust storm, blinding drivers and causing a fiery collision on I-40. In Colorado, those winds overturned tractor trailers and campers on Interstate 25. To the north, near Lincoln, Nebraska, semis jackknifed on I-80 in extreme blizzard and whiteout conditions, blocking traffic for 166 miles in both directions. And now that winter system that has millions on alert is barreling east. Meteorologist Lee Goldberg is tracking the fire, blizzard, and tornado threat. But first, ABC's Maria Villarreal leads us off from Norman, Oklahoma.
There we go, there's jackknife.
Tonight, blizzard conditions on the last night of winter. Cars and tractor trailers littering multiple highways around Lincoln, Nebraska, including Interstate 80. Winds gusting to 70 miles an hour, bending trees and traffic lights, knocking out power for hundreds of thousands across the Midwest. The massive system bringing all kinds of extreme weather, from snow to severe storms. 25 News meteorologist Kimberly Gomez tracking the storm. A tornado reported outside Peoria, Illinois late today.
We can't express this enough to get into your safe spaces.
Overnight, traffic at a standstill outside Denver after multiple semis jackknife in the snow on Interstate 25. And in New Mexico, a gruesome pileup in blinding conditions on Interstate 40 between Albuquerque and Santa Rosa.
Hopefully everybody's okay.
Further west,
dude, we just got hit by an avalanche.
Multiple cars buried by an avalanche on State Road 210 in Utah's Cottonwood Canyons from the same system that's now headed east.
Just such dangerous conditions. Maria, our thanks to you. For a closer look at this dangerous weather system and where it's headed next, we have meteorologist Lee Goldberg standing by. Lee, this storm seems to have a lot of everything. Where's it headed next?
Linsey, on this final day of winter, it's spring and winter really doing battle. It's causing all types of problems. The first part, the severe weather. So there have been tornado warnings near the Chicago area, strong storms moving through. The tornado watches were expanded down through Indiana and into Kentucky as we go through the late evening hours. All a part of the system that has the blizzard conditions over the Midwest, up to 10 inches of snow in Kansas, and then all the fire danger and wind alerts through parts of the plains. So this is moving eastward. We have severe weather across the Midwest tonight, but that's replaced by the snow tomorrow morning. The snow extends up to Green Bay, but after the severe storm threat in Chicago tonight, they wake up to some snow for the commute as colder winds start to work in. It'll be a blustery day developing across the Great Lakes. By the end of the day, it's the heavy rain that gets to the I-95 corridor, pretty good soaking in New York City, probably just after the evening commute. That moves into New England. Behind that storm, gusty winds, even some snow on Friday in northern New England. Lindsay?
Still waiting for spring to have sprung. All right, Lee Goldberg, our thanks to you.
Sure.
For the first time since that explosive Oval Office confrontation, President Trump and President Zelensky had a conversation. The two leaders spoke for nearly an hour and both said it was a good call. Our chief international correspondent James Longman has more about what we're learning about the push to end the war with Russia and the surprising offer the president made to protect Ukraine.
Lindsay, that call between Presidents Trump and Zelensky lasted nearly an hour today. It follows, of course, the call yesterday between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, in which Donald Trump convinced Vladimir Putin to stop hitting energy infrastructure inside Ukraine. Well, today, Volodymyr Zelensky agreed to do the same, not hit infrastructure inside Russia. So that is a big step on the route towards peace. That is, anyway, the view of the White House. But another extraordinary development out of this call today is that Donald Trump offered to take ownership of Ukrainian energy infrastructure. He said that for America to do this would mean that there would be more security. A lot of the conversation has revolved around the Zaporizhzhia power plant, which is currently occupied by the Russians. It's the largest nuclear power plant in Europe, and it used to provide 20% of all of Ukraine's electricity. So this would be a huge step in the right direction, so to speak, as far as the Ukrainians are concerned. And so we'll have to see what happens in the talks that are due to continue this weekend in the Middle East. Lindsay?
Still a wait and see. James Longman, our thanks to you. We turn now to the war in the Middle East. Israel is stepping up attacks on Gaza with what they're calling focused ground operations. These are the first IDF troops on the ground since Israel ended the ceasefire with Hamas earlier this week. And Gaza is now effectively divided in half once again after deadly rounds of airstrikes. Let's get to our Matt Rivers now, who's in Israel. Matt, what do we know about the latest Israeli operations in Gaza and also the West Bank?
Yeah, Lindsay, the Israelis are calling this a focused operation, but make no mistake, this is a major escalation in this conflict. After we saw that ceasefire get shattered overnight into Tuesday, we've seen hundreds of people in Gaza killed since then, and now we know for the first time in several months, we have Israeli troops entering deep into Gaza once again, focusing on that corridor you mentioned that stretches east to west. It basically divides northern Gaza from the southern part of that area. It's a way for the IDF to control population flows, but this is a very big deal, Lindsay, and it's an open question at this point as to where it goes from here.
And of course, Israel's defense minister made several threats today. Tell us about what he had to say.
Yeah, a pretty startling statement addressed to the civilians of Gaza, with the defense minister basically making an address, essentially saying that it would be ordinary Gaza civilians that would pay the price if they do not get rid of Hamas. Let me just read you an exact quote. The Air Force attack against Hamas terrorists was only the first step. The rest will be much more difficult, and you will pay the full price, meaning the ordinary citizens there. So that's a tone shift from the Israeli government. It's something that might be a warning of sorts to people there, that the fighting that we have seen play out for so many months now, the horrors that we've seen, they might continue. Even if it's political theater, Lindsay, just trying to get Hamas back to the negotiating table, those kind of words instill fear in so many people.
Certainly sounds ominous. Matt, our thanks to you. There's been an about-face tonight from the Defense Department. The Pentagon removed and then restored a web page about baseball great and civil rights pioneer Jackie Robinson. Why did they do it to begin with? Here's ABC senior political correspondent Rachel Scott.
Tonight, the Pentagon sparking outrage after removing from its website a story celebrating the Army record of American icon Jackie Robinson, who broke the color barrier in Major League Baseball. Robinson was drafted during World War II. The story on the website included a description of his refusal to move to the back of an Army bus, an act that got him court-martialed and later acquitted. This morning, Robinson's story no longer available. In its place, this error page, and in the address bar, an indication of why the page was taken down. Added to the URL, the letters DEI for diversity, equity, and inclusion, something Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has vowed to purge from the Pentagon.
You have to tear out DEI and CRT initiatives root and branch out of institutions.
Jackie Robinson's son David Robinson today saying he was surprised the Pentagon removed the tribute to his father, adding, "We take great pride in Jackie Robinson's service to our country as a soldier and a sports hero, an icon whose courage, talent, strength of character, and dedication contributed greatly to leveling the playing field, not only in professional sports, but throughout society. Robinson not the only hero whose story was removed as part of the Pentagon's DEI purge. Military websites also taking down tributes to the legendary Tuskegee Airmen, the first African-American military pilots, the fabled Navajo code talkers of World War II, and Ira Hayes, a Native American and one of the Marines who raised the flag at Iwo Jima. Those pages and others that were removed later ultimately reinstated amid an outcry. Today, a Pentagon spokesperson saying, "Everyone at the Defense Department loves Jackie Robinson, as well as the Navajo code talkers, the Tuskegee Airmen, the Marines at Iwo Jima, and so many others. We salute them for their strong and in many cases heroic service to our country, full stop. We do not view or highlight them through the prism of immutable characteristics, such as race, ethnicity, or sex."
Our thanks to Rachel. It is one of the most shocking crimes in American history, and ever since it has fueled a multitude of conspiracy theories. For the last 24 hours, our team here has been poring over the thousands of documents related to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy that have now been released. In total, 63,400 pages, and they're giving scholars a lot to digest. Here's ABC's Terry Moran with a look at what we're learning.
Tonight, more than 6 decades after President John F. Kennedy's assassination, more than 63,000 pages of unredacted files long held secret are now public. Historians, amateur sleuths, and online conspiracy theorists poring over the files all day today. That day in Dallas haunting the country for 62 years. But so far in these new documents, no new bombshells.
It really isn't that much new, at least in the part that we have examined so far. But we have learned quite a bit about the CIA.
Instead, new details and descriptions of tradecraft in the CIA at the time. Some of its operations in embassies around the world, from Mexico to France to Iran, and its surveillance previously revealed of Oswald, Kennedy's assassin. One of the files long sought by investigators, the Schlesinger memo, revealed that some of Kennedy's closest aides did not trust the CIA and were discussing reforms to it. Another file pulled back the curtain on some CIA operations. The organization was tapping Soviet and Cuban telephones at their diplomatic facilities in Mexico City, locations Lee Harvey Oswald visited in the months before the assassination. The documents shedding light on what some say are the agency's failures, including catching Oswald before the president was killed.
If they had done their jobs properly and shared information with one another, President Kennedy probably would have served 2 full terms as president.
We want to continue that conversation now. For that, our Terry Moran, an ABC contributor and presidential historian, Mark Updegrove, join us. Thank you both. Terry, let's start with you. No smoking gun, after all, that some conspiracy theorists may have been hoping for, but there are some interesting details here. What else did we find out about the CIA tradecraft?
Well, that sense that they had operations going on in embassies, foreign embassies, in other capitals around the world. It's not that surprising, but we learned a good deal about the way that the CIA set up wiretaps. They had a special way of doing it and a mark that could be left with a special material that could only be seen under fluorescent light, so that if there was another spy there, could tell if that phone had been tapped or not. And that was developed by a man named James McCord, who was one of the technical experts within the CIA. He became famous a few years later for being one of the Watergate burglars. So he got around some. So it's tidbits like that. But if people are looking, and we're still going through, our team and others, still going through this tranche of documents, but they don't make it easy. It's very painstaking to cross-check with existing documents. And so far, really nothing that would counter the conclusion that the Warren Commission came to all those years ago.
And Mark, from what you've been able to review up to this point, what stands out to you in these documents?
You know, as Terry said, there's nothing particularly revealing in these documents to this point. We understand why they have been withheld for as long as they have, because they reveal things about our security apparatus and were considered to be potentially compromising of our national security. In addition, there's personally identifiable information that was redacted before, what's called in government as PII, that would reveal the identities of those in the CIA and on the front lines of our national security efforts. So no great surprise here. And as Terry mentioned, Linsey, it's really, there's no incontrovertible empirical evidence that there was anything but a lone gunman responsible for the assassination of John F. Kennedy.
And Mark, just staying with you for a moment as you continue to go over the tens of thousands of pages, is there something at all in particular you're looking for?
I think mostly color around what was happening on the day of the assassination, November 22nd, 1963, and before and after the assassination. I just basic color around what was going on at the time, what our security community, our intelligence community was looking at the time. Linsey, I'd love to hear what Jacqueline Kennedy had to say about the day of her husband's assassination. Those are details that we have yet to get to this point, and they would be interesting in rounding out the mysteries that still surround that tragic day 62 years ago.
Terry, these files and everything about the assassination, it has been such a source of fascination for many people. What do you think is behind this enduring interest in JFK, and why ultimately release these documents?
Well, those are two questions. And one is, I think what's behind it is it was such a shock, such a horror, such a blow to Americans' identity. The notion that it could have been just the sordid act of one of these lone gunmen that we've now become so familiar with. Look, he's 24 years old. We know a lot of that kind of person over the decades, but not back then. And then he was murdered by somebody, connected with the mob. And that set it off as well. But I think it was the sense that it had to mean something bigger than that lonely fella. It had to mean something historic and sweeping. And people wanted it to do that. And it doesn't at the end of the day, if in fact the conclusion that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone is borne out.
All right, Terry Moran, Mark Updegrove, we thank you both so much for your time and insight. The last known person to see the University of Pittsburgh student who vanished in the Dominican Republic while on spring break is headed back to the United States tonight. ABC News has learned Joshua Reeby was given an emergency travel document from the U.S. Embassy and is now on his way home to Iowa. According to Reeby, the young lady who vanished from the beach after the two went swimming in the ocean, he is not considered a suspect, and authorities say he has cooperated as a witness. A scary scene today outside of CIA headquarters in Virginia. Police say a man approached the gate pointing a firearm at himself and the building. SWAT teams rushed to the scene and a nearby school was put on lockdown. Our Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas has more on the hours-long standoff.
The dramatic standoff unfolding just after 9:30 a.m. when police say a man appears at the entrance gate to CIA headquarters wielding a handgun.
Male seen walking near the CIA building, pointing a firearm at his head and towards the building.
Nearby Langley High School put on lockdown as an army of police and CIA security, including SWAT and tactical teams, descend on the scene to confront the suspect, described as a middle-aged white male with wavy hair. Sources telling ABC News Fairfax County police and CIA officials negotiating with the man who they suspected was in a mental health crisis. But authorities taking no chances because that CIA entrance has a violent past. In 2021, a man was shot by authorities after he got out of his car with a gun. And in 1993, Mir Amal Khanzi used an assault-style rifle to fatally shoot 2 and wound 3 others near that gate before fleeing to Pakistan. Law enforcement's patience paying off. A suspect seen here taken into custody more than 5 hours after the standoff began.
Our thanks to Pierre Thomas. And on the economy tonight, the Federal Reserve is taking a wait-and-see approach on where they think it's heading. The Fed left its key lending interest rate unchanged today, but is still expected to make 2 rate cuts later this year. Fed Chair Jerome Powell said President Trump's tariffs may delay bringing inflation down, but added the impact will be short-term and the economy is strong overall. Stocks climbed following the news, the Dow gaining 383 points. NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams spent their first full day back here on Earth. Wilmore received a big hug as he arrived at Johnson Space Center in Houston for a medical evaluation. Williams also arrived there to complete similar evaluations. ABC News Live covered the moment they splashed down off the Florida coast yesterday. The two emerged from their SpaceX capsule, ending more than 9 months in space for what was supposed to be a week-long mission. And still ahead tonight, the LA District Attorney tells ABC News why he won't support resentencing for the Menendez brothers and what he says they've been lying about for 30 years. But next, a judge ordered a deportation plane full of alleged gang members to turn around. The White House did not listen. Now, many aren't exactly sure just who was sent to a notorious mega prison in El Salvador.
They said they were the worst of the worst, and then it turned out, no, some of them didn't even have criminal convictions at all.
Welcome back, everyone. The Trump administration is under a one-day deadline to provide information on that deportation flight to El Salvador that a judge said should have never happened. Officials first declared the plane was full of alleged gang members, but now ICE admits that many didn't have criminal records in the U.S. at all. Tonight, we're hearing from family members of some of the men who they claim were innocent, as we're learning more about the infamous high-security prison in Central America where they now find themselves. Our Maria Villarreal walks us through it all in tonight's Prime Focus.
I can tell you this, these were bad people. That was a bad group of, as I say, hombres.
No entiendo por qué los trasladaron allá, con tatuajes, sin tatuajes, con récord o sin récord.
We do not think the Alien Enemies Act can be used at all. It cannot be used during peacetime.
The White House facing major legal fallout. President Trump invoking a rare wartime authority known as the Alien Enemies Act. More than 200 migrants deported, the administration claiming some belong to the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua.
I would caution people to be very careful about accepting at face value the Trump administration's characterization of all these people. We just saw that with Guantanamo, that the administration overstated who the individuals were. They said they were the worst of the worst. And then it turned out, no, some of them didn't even have criminal convictions at all.
A federal judge asking for more proof, ordering the group's return, but the administration defiant.
We're not stopping. I don't care what the judges think. I don't care what the left thinks. We're coming.
And the families of some of those migrants now saying they weren't gang members at all and had in fact been detained after showing up for routine check-ins.
Ahí lo detuvieron unos agentes policiales porque lo vieron tatuado y le dijeron que lo iban a detener para investigarlo por su tatuaje.
ICE has even acknowledged that many of the migrants did not have criminal records in the U.S., and ABC News received documents from two families showing no criminal records in South America either. Here's a breakdown of what we know. March 14th, it was on this day that President Trump signed a proclamation enacting the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, a centuries-old law that allows the rapid deportation of non-citizens with little to no due process. Until now, this law had only been invoked during major wars. The last time it was invoked was World War II for internment camps of people of Japanese, German, and Italian descents. March 15th, U.S. District Judge James Boasberg orders a 5 p.m. emergency hearing. But the administration filed a notice of appeal and announced the official use of the Alien Enemies Act. Mid-flight, Judge Boasberg orders all flights return to the U.S., blocking the deportation of any non-citizen subject to the president's proclamation. This was roughly 45 minutes before the first of two flights holding the deportees landed, meaning the crew could have turned the plane around if the White House had given the order. Instead, just after midnight on March 16th, the first flight lands in El Salvador. The alleged members of Tren de Aragua transferred from U.S. custody into El Salvador's notorious terrorism confinement center and under the jurisdiction of President Nayib Bukele, who is known for imposing a state of emergency that suspended civil and constitutional liberties. Bukele joking on social media that the judge's orders came too late. He had already accepted the migrants, releasing video of the processing. March 17th, Judge Boasberg held a fact-finding mission to determine whether the Trump administration knowingly violated a court order. Top administration lawyers argued the planes were over international waters and the judge's orders did not apply, Boasberg calling that a heck of a stretch. March 18th, President Trump took to his social media calling out Judge Boasberg, saying in part, "This judge, like many of the crooked judges I am forced to appear before, should be impeached," even appearing on Fox News to continue his grievances.
Many people have called for his impeachment, the impeachment of this judge. I don't know who the judge is, but he's radical left.
All of this prompting a rare reaction from Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts, saying for more than 2 centuries it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. Iovana Sanchez believes her husband is one of the hundreds of Venezuelan men who were on the plane deported under the Alien Enemies Act.
Y como yo constan de que pienso y sé que está allá es porque él tiene tatuaje, porque él es barbero, pero él no tiene participante ni nada con ese grupo con que lo están involucrando, ¿entiende? Él tiene su proceso de asilo acá, él creó todo acá legalmente, nunca fue a una cita.
26-year-old Jose Franco Caraballo Tiapa has a pending asylum case in the U.S. and was picked up at a routine check-in with Immigration Customs Enforcement in Dallas.
Eso ha sido horrible, yo no descanso, incluso yo no como, yo nomás he tomado jugo y agua porque yo sé que él allá tampoco está comiendo. Con este mandato estamos sufriendo fobia, discriminación y racismo.
ABC News reached out to ICE for comment about Caraballo and did not receive a response. March 19th, the judge giving the administration one more day to provide more evidence about the migrants on these planes and the timing of the flights. Some predicting this case, like many others, will end up on the doorstep of the Supreme Court, leaving many families in limbo.
So much uncertainty. We'll, of course, continue to follow it all for you. Our thanks to Maria for that. Coming up, more trouble for Elon Musk, why a major auto show is locking the door so Tesla can't get in. Plus, casual dining takes a bigger bite out of your wallet. The biggest price increases at some of America's favorite restaurant chains. We take a look by the numbers next. Welcome back, everyone. Today, Fed Chair Jerome Powell expressed concerns about lingering inflation, especially in light of the tariffs President Trump has threatened. And that most likely means the high prices you've been paying at the grocery store and at restaurants will stay that way for the foreseeable future. Tonight, how chain restaurants are trying to keep up by the numbers. Grocery prices were up 1.9% year over year as of February, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Price Index. And prices at sit-down restaurants were up almost twice that, 3.7%. High prices for eggs and beef were the main drivers. When it comes to restaurant chains, no chain has seen a bigger jump in prices than the Waffle House. The average menu item doubling in price, not far behind though. Having to jack up prices 82% was IHOP. These figures according to a report by the financial information platform Finance Buzz. With price increases between 40 and 45% at Cheesecake Factory, Applebee's, and TGI Fridays. Clearly, even the largest chains, which buy in greater bulk, are also passing along increased costs to customers. And all the price of the food you eat has risen 31% in the last 6 years. Still ahead, it's as much an art as it is a sport. We're talking women's rodeo, and we'll introduce you to the athletes and the animals. And you won't want to miss the ever-entertaining actor John Leguizamo. He's here with actress Barbie Ferreira to discuss the unusual true story behind their latest feature film, Bob Trevino Likes It. The Menendez family's hopes for resentencing for Lyle and Eric Menendez, the brothers convicted in the 1989 murder of their parents, may have hit a big snag, namely the new elected Los Angeles District Attorney. Our Matt Gutman got a chance to sit down with him. Here's a look.
After rejecting a new trial or reduced sentence for the Menendez brothers, tonight LA's new DA Nathan Hochman doubling down.
Do you believe that they deserve to die in prison?
My personal belief is completely irrelevant.
In a new interview, Hochman drawing that line in the sand, saying he would reconsider resentencing only if the brothers admit to what he says are decades of lies.
If they sincerely and unequivocally admit for the first time in over 30 years the full range of their criminal activity and all the lies that they have told about it.
Like, do you want them to enumerate each individual lie? Do you have a checklist?
I actually do. The essence of that checklist is that they'd have to finally admit after 30 years They killed their parents willfully, deliberately, and in premeditated fashion, not because they believed that their parents were going to kill them that night.
For years, the brothers have claimed they killed in self-defense following years of abuse at the hands of their father. Hochman stressing that sex abuse was never their defense.
You have said that the evidence that you have seen in the 50,000 pages of documents does not suggest that they were sexually abused by their parents and their father.
There was no additional corroboration of anyone in 12 years, whether it was another adult, a friend, a coach, a teacher, who reported on any percipient information that the sexual abuse occurred during those 12 years. But was there evidence presented at trial? Yes.
If in the resentencing here in LA, the judge decides that they should be seen by a parole board and begin that pathway for resentencing, would you try to fight it?
So we would certainly look at the judge's justification for any resentencing. And if the judge does his job and looks at all the factors and reaches a different conclusion than us, but one that the law also would support, we would not be in a position to appeal that.
But the Menendez family says the brothers endured horrific abuse, have admitted guilt, and apologized. They accuse the DA of being hostile and patronizing.
When you look into their eyes, what do you see? Do you see all the pain? Do you see their desire to see their family members released after 35 years?
I
do. You
do.
See their forgiveness and their understanding that the brothers have apologized and essentially come clean to them?
I do. I do absolutely see the sincerity of their belief that they want the Menendez brothers out, 100%.
Our thanks to Matt Gutman. Now the brothers' best hope for release appears to lay with California Governor Gavin Newsom. He's already fast-tracked a process for clemency. That parole hearing is set for June. A meltdown at Ben & Jerry's over politics. Elon Musk and Tesla get the cold shoulder up north, and the major change coming from millions of commuters. Those stories and much more in tonight's rundown.
Ben & Jerry's says its CEO, David Stever, was unlawfully removed because of the company's political activism. In a lawsuit, the ice cream maker claims its UK-based parent company, Unilever, removed Stever for his commitment to Ben & Jerry's social mission and essential brand integrity. Ben & Jerry's has accused Unilever of trying to silence them before, including in a lawsuit last year over the company speaking out on the war in Gaza. The Trump administration is suspending $175 million in federal funding to the University of Pennsylvania. The White House's rapid response team posted on X that the pause was because of the university's, quote, policies forcing women to compete with men in sports. It comes a month after President Trump's executive order banning transgender athletes from women's sports and an education department investigation into Leah Thomas's spot on the Penn women's swim team. Penn said they had not received any official notification of the pause, but says they have always followed NCAA and Ivy League policies on student participation on sports teams. This year's Vancouver International Auto Show is underway without Tesla. The show announced Tuesday that Tesla was removed after being given multiple chances to withdraw, adding that their main concern was, quote, the safety of attendees, exhibitors, and staff. The decision comes as Tesla has become a major target over Elon Musk's actions in the Trump administration, including incidents where Tesla vehicles and dealerships have been attacked. A close call between two planes at Chicago Midway International Airport may have been caused in part by a sun glare. The National Transportation Safety Board released its preliminary report on the February incident where a Southwest Airlines flight performed a go-around and passed 250 feet over a FlexJet plane. The report says crew members on the FlexJet seemed confused about the location of the runway and that sun glare impeded their vision. No one was injured. It's the end of an era for the New York City subway. The Metropolitan Transit Authority says it will stop selling Metro cards by the end of this year. After 3 decades, the swipeable cards will be fully replaced by already available tap-and-go payment options, allowing riders to pay with digital wallets, contactless credit and debit cards, and the MTA's Omni cards. And the tush-push play, made famous by the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles, is officially under review by the NFL. The play, as seen here in this year's Super Bowl, involves the quarterback taking a snap as players behind him try to push him forward. A new proposal submitted by the Green Bay Packers would bar any player from pushing a teammate lined up directly behind the snap. The proposal would need 24 of the league's 32 owners to be adopted.
It's the true story of an unexpected friendship, one that director Tracy Lehman experienced firsthand while searching for her estranged father online. Barbie Ferreira and John Leguizamo starring Bob Trevino Likes It, a comedy drama winning 13 film festival awards and reminding viewers of the value of true friendship. Let's take a look.
Hi, are we related?
Jeannie, I think I may have made a friend. Who? Some young woman on the internet.
My name is Lily Trevino.
I don't even know how she found me.
He's funny.
Look, she's screaming into the void. No one even likes her posts.
Just don't give her any money.
Hi.
John and Barbie, kind enough to join us here in studio. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to you.
Great to be back. I love your new space.
Thank you. Yes, we got some new digs here. Let's start with you, Barbie. I mean, you've played such a variety of roles, from psychological thrillers to some raw coming-of-age stories. What attracted you to Lily?
Well, I thought that Lily was just an incredible character to kind of study your inner child, what happens with trauma, and also the hope that's in there. It was really just, it really, really moved me when I read the script.
How did you approach playing a character who's vulnerable yet so determined to find her dad?
Well, Tracy and I worked a lot on this character before we even started shooting. This is an indie, so we didn't even know if we were gonna shoot. So we spent a lot of time thinking about it, and we have so many overlaps on our stories growing up. So it was really just keeping that heart and emotion that we both share in this character.
And John, of course, you've appeared in hundreds of movies and TV shows. Your career is always pushing boundaries. What made you decide, yeah, I like Bob, I like this character?
Well, you know, in these times that we're living in that are kind of dark, it's so nice to put a movie that has so much positivity, so much love, that celebrates the respect of others and a decent human being. I don't know, I read the script and I was so moved by it that these two lonely people can connect who are strangers and be better for each other than their relatives. I thought that was such a beautiful message.
It really is about this unlikely human connection. I'm wondering if there's a particular scene or moment where you feel like Lily and John's character, Bob, really exemplifies that.
I think we both think of the puppy scene a
Yes,
lot.
yes,
I think that's kind
right.
of the catalyst of the journey that Lily is forced to do because she's been ignoring herself for so long. And I think that was really kind of informed the rest of the shoot. You know, it was a really special moment.
Yeah, it was great. Bob Trevino, my character, finds out from her that she had this traumatic experience with her puppy, and her dad took her dog away from her. So Bob, in his best way, takes her to a puppy place and gets her a puppy, and it's just, she has a little moment there, and we have a little, it's
small acts of kindness are really
it's so beautiful.
I love how you guys just finish each other's thoughts and sentences so in sync. And it really does seem like there's this balance, right? In particular with Bob's character, because you find this humor at the same time. Here's a character who's isolated, who's grieving, experiencing loss. Was that complex for you to navigate that heaviness, but at the same time be funny?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I loved about playing this role, which is what I don't usually get to play, some sort of like a regular guy who's just, we all have a little loneliness and a little pain that we carry with us. And just to keep that alive and still be this corny guy. He's not a funny guy. He's a corny, funny guy. And we know a lot of people like that. I got a lot of relatives like that who think they're funny, but they're not.
That's me. I'm the person who's always laughing the loudest at my own jokes. But what I thought was interesting that this tackles is this human desire to be connected, that lately we go and seek that out through technology, right? Which this movie really explores. And I'm just curious, in your own lives, like what you think about that and where we are in this current state of play.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I find technology is what's making us lonelier.
Yeah, you're right.
And it isolates us more because it's so exciting and it always serves us and makes us feel great about ourselves, but we're not communicating.
Right.
So I think this movie tells you that you can use technology for good or bad, but you can also use it to connect.
Yeah, I feel like there hasn't been a lot of films about the positives of social media. And of course there has to be some because we're all on it. I mean, from my grandma to, a young little cousin, they're all on the internet. So I think it was really cool to frame the connections that you make on the internet as something positive instead of like stranger danger or like scary, which of course is a problem in itself. But it was just a beautiful, just completely honest representation of a friendship that you meet that's so unlikely.
Right. So fascinating to bring this story to life. And thank you guys both so much for coming by. So appreciate it. Great to see you. And Bob Trevino Likes It opens in select cities March 21st and expands nationally March 28th. Finally tonight, it's a mix of sport and public entertainment that requires skill, patience, and most of all, passion. This Women's History Month, we are meeting the women of rodeo as they compete and care for their animals, all on a national stage.
Cowboys and cowgirls.
Rodeo really is the lifeblood of the country.
Let's go.
It is America's sport. The National Western Stock Show here in Denver kicks off that first big major rodeo of the year. Women have been barrel racing since 1948. To be a female rodeo athlete, you really have to be resilient.
She started competing at age 6.
Women are competing against the clock.
Left-hand barrel is legal. Her bridle fell off.
They run a horse at 3 barrels.
She doesn't have a bridle on the horse.
They run a clover leaf pattern. It's a very fast-paced event. You might miss it if you reach down to grab some popcorn.
15, 6, 7, 2.
At most, they're running 3 times on Saturday. Goes from 16 to 8 to 2.
I was riding a horse before I could even walk. I love the competition, but most of all, I love being able to ride these incredible animals. I love the energy of the fans, and rodeos, it's always loud and they have the music going. I love that feeling.
Caitlin's our rodeo all-star champion.
The number 9 ranked cowgirl in the world. This is Caitlin Scott.
My horses are seasoned and they get just as hyped up on the music. What I've practiced is to be calm, keep my body relaxed, because these horses can feel anything. They can feel a fly land on them. So while I'm excited, I have to really keep my body calm and supple, because if I'm tense or grab the reins tightly, they can feel that.
15-3-42, she's number 2 and she's moving on.
Breeding has evolved so much from horses that were used just out on the range to horses that compete now. And so their genetics are made for this event.
Just you love that, don't you? I don't really feel like you're against anyone else, just you and the horse in your own race.
She's the 2019 Colorado versus the World champ, Amy Joe, round 1. Amy Joe, round 2. Come on, y'all, she's setting the pace. 15-4-5-5 to set the pace.
This is Fanny. I call her Fannie Mae. She loves the attention from me. And that was her very first rodeo run ever. And so I expect her to get faster and to do really well.
Caitlin Scott for the Calgary Stampede, setting the pace.
She really found her first barrel of this run. She was nailed on it.
There you go, Caitlin.
Her second barrel was great. She finished it much better, and then she smoked her third.
Wow, fastest run of the day.
She let me do it, and I couldn't believe the time when I saw it.
These animal athletes are treated like royalty. They're treated better than your house dog. These women love their horses to the bitter end, and they're giving them the preparation and care that they need. And these horses truly love what they do.
I love rubbing their eyes. As you tell, they like this. This doesn't make them go faster, but as one of my friends says, we do the little things because they like it.
She has these magnet blanket on in between because it's just kind of helps her feel good and get to rest.
The girls are really supportive, especially because they all just love horses. They're in the sport of rodeo to be advocates for the horse.
Baby Cakes has done awesome, and I just don't want to make 3 runs on her, so I'm going to get on Twiz. I expect him to go out there and perform, but these are animals, and you never know what the cards may hold, so I just want to do the best that I can and hope he performs as well.
He ended up in the top 30 in the world. 1 season ago. We got a chance. Caitlin, let's go. 15-1-1-9. From Odessa, Texas, representing the Calgary Stampede, let's hear it for Caitlin Scott.
I was really happy that I got on Twiz. He was awesome. He worked great. They said I was #1, and guess proof is in the pudding. My horses both seem to do good after a big day today. They're happy, and at the end of the day, how they're feeling is what matters, and so I'm happy they're sound, and they worked amazing, and couldn't be more grateful.
Our thanks to Malka for that piece. And that is our show for this hour. I'm Linsey Davis. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks so much for streaming with us.